I honestly debated not recording this video because the three sales tactics we're about to dive into are both extremely dark and yet extremely effective. So if you stay and watch until the end of this video, you are honestly a terrible person. But seriously, guys, with great power comes great responsibility. So if you are going to use these tactics, please use them ethically and only use them to sell something that can genuinely benefit the person in front of you. And with that being said, let's dive in. Dark tactic number one is called the knife twist formula. Now, I need to give you guys a little bit of context so that you can best understand and apply this tactic. Now, those who have watched my previous content, or if you're a sales coaching client of mine, you will know that I often reference this diagram here, which is called the inspiration-desperation matrix. Now, by the way, guys, this is not like something I've copied off of YouTube. This is my own original thought. This is the way that I think about sales. This is my own mental model based off of thousands of calls and millions of dollars closed. Because it's often said in the industry that people buy out of pain and desire, and that's true. But the thing is, unlike genders, which are binary, pain and desire is not binary. It's more like a spectrum, okay? So I kind of, like I said, this is my own mental model for how I think about prospects. And on the left-hand side here, we've got a prospect in low pain, low desire. We've got a sad face because that is not where a high-ticket sale happens. On the right-hand side, we've got high pain, high desire, and we've got big old dollar signs because that is where a high-ticket sale happens. Now, two key points that I need you guys to understand so that you can understand and apply the knife twist formula is as follows. The buying point. The higher that your price point is relevant to the prospect's net worth, the further along the matrix or the further along the spectrum they will need to be in order to buy. And the inverse is true as well. The lower the price point relevant to their net worth, the further along to the other side that they can be in order to buy. Now, so for example, a practical example, if I've recently taken up basketball as a hobby, let's say that in this context, I'm in no real pain. I've got a little bit of desire to improve my basketball skills. If I'm hit with an ad that sells maybe an ebook or a little mini course for $4, helping me to improve my basketball skill, even though I'm in relatively low pain and a little bit of desire, so I'm over this side of the matrix, I still might buy it because the price is very insignificant relevant to my net worth. But let's say, same context, low pain, slight desire. If I'm hit with an ad for like a full-fledged, course, coach, consulting to improve my basketball skills, it's at a price point of 8K. That buying point is going to be much further along the matrix. I'm going to need to be in a lot more higher pain and higher desire to actually buy it. Very, very important to understand the buying point. Now, point number two is called the nudge. Okay, so here's where it gets really, really important. What a masterful salesperson or a masterful closer does, whether they recognize this consciously or unconsciously, what they do is nudge the prospect along the matrix. They, in other words, nudge them further into a state of high pain, high desire. There's a variety of ways that they do this, but one of the ways and the main ways is through skilled questioning. So let's say that a prospect starts off the call with us and they're, around about here, kind of in the middle, fairly low pain, fairly low desire. With our masterful sales process, we're going to nudge them further along the matrix so that by the time that we get to the close, they are more like over here in a heightened state of high pain, high desire. So this is what the dark tactic does. This is what the knife twist formula does. It nudges the prospect further into a state of heightened pain. So here's what you do. Step number one. You really have to, as a salesperson, you have to train your mind, train your senses to listen out and pick up any little breadcrumbs of pain that the prospect gives you. Because there will always be breadcrumbs. Even if you get those prospects that are like, oh, just curious, those kind of people, like, I promise you that even those people, they will always give you something. You just have to train your mind to be able to pick it up. So, for example, let's say that a prospect rambles on for minutes, right? Let's say that you've opened up the call. Hey, Mr. Prospect, what made you book in? They're rambling on for minutes about fairly insignificant things. But during their little ramble, they do give you one line. They give you one tiny little breadcrumb of pain where they say, yeah, I'm just not making the money I want to make. Boom. Okay, we've got it. We've got our breadcrumb. Now, think of that like a thread. We're going to pull on that thread from here on out. So we're going to make a mental note of that, and then we're going to apply the knife twist formula to that pain statement that they made. So step number two, you're going to take that breadcrumb of pain that they gave you, we're going to apply the formula, and what this is going to do is amplify their pain, and it's going to nudge them further along the matrix into a heightened state of pain. Very, very important for closing high-ticket deals. The formula for the knife twist is as follows. We're going to go deeper into each section. It's first off clarify, then how long, then amplify, then impact. So the prospects rambled on. They've given you that breadcrumb of pain, that pain statement. Then we're going to go into clarifying. So once the prospect is done talking, we are going to get them to elaborate further by asking a clarifying question. Nice and simply, we just ask them to clarify what they meant by that statement of pain. What this will do is get the prospect to verbally elicit in more detail the pain, and what that is going to do is bring the pain to the focus and the forefront of their conscious mind. And what's that going to do? It's going to nudge them further along the matrix into a heightened state of pain, okay? If, by the way, delivered correctly, you also get a nice little bonus of appearing to have genuine curiosity and concern about the prospect's situation, which does what? It raises trust. So it will go something like this in terms of a practical example. I opened up the call, prospect rambled on, they gave me that breadcrumb. I say, okay, good information there. Now, one thing I do want to dive into is that you mentioned there, I'm not making the money that I want to make. So just to clarify, like what do you actually mean by that? Now, as a side note, guys, do you realize there what I was kind of like stumbling over my words a little bit? I was really thinking, I was acting like I'm thinking about what to say. That's intentional, that's deliberate. Because if you can deliver this question with a bit of a concerned, curious tone, and also importantly, a vibe like you're genuinely confused, even though it's a stupidly simple statement that they made and it's obvious, but who cares? Like, they're not going to question it. You want to act genuinely confused. It's going to help them open up a lot more, and it's actually going to raise trust if you do it in that way. Very, very important. So the prospect gave that breadcrumb. We asked our clarifying question. Once they've done speaking, we're then going to move on to the next stage of the formula, which is how long. So now that we've got the prospect talking a lot more in depth about their pain, we're now going to nudge them further along the matrix by stretching the pain. And we do that by asking them how long they've been thinking / feeling that way. Now, what this does is serve the purpose of bringing to the forefront of the prospect's conscious mind that this is a bigger deal, okay? We're taking that pain, stretching it, okay? What this is going to do is nudge the prospect along the matrix. Again, all masterful closers, whether they realize this consciously or not, this is what they do. They nudge their prospect along that matrix into a heightened state of pain. So following on from the previous example, the prospect gave a statement of pain. We asked a clarifying question, and now it's going to go something like this. Got it. Appreciate you sharing that. How long has this been going on for, by the way? Then nice and simply, you let them speak and then move on. Once we've done that, we're then going to go into amplifying. So we have really nudged the prospect further into a heightened state of pain by now. Now we're going to really twist that knife by asking an amplifying question. So imagine, like, the analogy I give, if the how long question was like pouring petrol on something, the amplifying question is the lighter. It just ignites the whole thing. It ignites like visceral, real feelings of pain. It moves the pain from something that they're kind of, vaguely aware of to something that they cannot ignore. So some example amplifying questions that you can use, there's tons, but these are just a couple of examples. So we asked our clarifying question, they elaborated more. We said how long, okay. What kind of impact has that been having on you, though? How's that affected your day-to-day life? Has that affected XYZ too? What's that done to XYZ as a result? Okay, again, those are just a few. Like, you guys hopefully get the idea. Insert the way that you speak in your language. Now, step number 4, we're going to very quickly recap. By now, the prospect has given us a pain statement. They've given us a little breadcrumb of pain, because remember, they will always give you breadcrumbs of pain. Even the prospects that are like, oh, just curious, even them, Nobody books a sales call without some kind of problem and pain, so they will give you something. So they said their pain statement. We got them to expand more by asking a clarifying question. We then stretched the pain by asking how long they've been thinking or feeling that way, and we then amplified the pain further. Now we're going to put that final nail in the coffin by asking an impact question. Now, an important disclaimer here, guys. What I'm about to go through, it's a whole topic by itself. Like, I could make a whole video about this, but I'm not going to go too deep into it right now. To sum up, we don't want prospects feeling like absolute complete shit. Pain is important, but the thing is that prospects that feel literally no hope are less likely to buy. Generally speaking, people buy when they are in a hopeful, enthusiastic state. Remember, the raw foundational ingredient of a high-ticket sale is change. And if the prospect has no hope whatsoever that they can get the change, then I mean they're not going to buy. So with that being said, we do want to heighten pain, but we also want to ensure that they are still in a place of, hopeful enthusiasm about achieving the change and achieving the outcome that they want. So therefore, depending on context, you don't always have to ask an impact question. If you feel like by the time you've gone clarify, how long, amplify, if you feel like you've got enough pain by that point, you can just move on and you can skip the impact question. Sometimes, like, my clients will ask me, well, how do you know? And it's tough because, like, it's more of like a feeling thing. It's tough to articulate in words. Like, once you get a lot of experience on calls, you can just kind of feel when you have enough pain. But ultimately, guys, we do want pain, but we also do still want to leave some room for hope and enthusiasm. So, carry on asking an impact question or don't, depending on the specific situation. Now, with that being said, amplify questions are mainly asking the impact as it relates to them personally. But the difference between amplify and impact is that in impact questioning, we're going to relate that pain to other areas of their life or other people in their life. Very dark, very effective also. So here's some example impact questions, which are going to nudge the prospect further into a state of heightened pain. So we've asked that amplify question, they've elaborated. By this point, they're just drowning in pain. And you're like, interesting. Out of interest, is that impacted like XYZ? And XYZ can be, wife, kids, close friends, people that are close to them. Very dark, guys. Very dark. Has that impacted XYZ other parts of the business? If you're in more of like a biz op, something that helps, an offer that helps them improve their business, this might be a little bit more applicable. Has that impacted other areas of your business too? Again, to reiterate, amplify is the pain related to them personally. Impact is the pain related to other areas of their life or other people in their life, okay? So to very quickly recap the knife twist formula, the prospect gives us their pain statement. We then ask a clarifying question. We then ask how long, which stretches the pain. We then ask an amplifying question, and then optionally, depending on if you've already got enough pain by that point, we ask an impact question. And that, boys, leads me nicely onto dark tactic number 2, which is called the circle of impact. Very dark, very effective. Now, I'm actually not going to spend too much longer on this one because it kind of ties back to dark tactic 1, and dark tactic 3 is really where everything ties all together. So this tactic here, okay, you use at your own discretion. The basic laws of human psychology state that people will often tolerate certain levels of pain within themselves, but they will struggle to tolerate pain when it affects the people close to them. So, like, if you really think about, for example, the archetype of like a people pleaser, they often care more about the well-being of other people compared to themselves, right? And in this tactic, we're going to leverage that psychological phenomena for sales conversions. Again, you're a terrible person. Now, here's how we do it. You tie absolutely everything, their pain, their desire, their reason to act now, we tie that back to their close people. So especially if they have wife and kids, it sounds so bad saying it, but it's true. Especially wife and kids is the big one. Parents are another one. Siblings, business partners, anyone that they care deeply about. Now, this works in 2 primary directions. Number 1 is pain. And like I said, this ties very much back to tactic number 1, so I'm not going to spend too long here. But as above, let's say the prospect says they're not making the money they want to make. We want to follow up with something like and tie it into the close people around them. Interesting. Is that affecting the way that you show up for your wife and kids? Has that impacted your family life at all? Do you think that insert relationship notices the stress that you've been under? And what that does is the pain goes from logical to like visceral to emotional to real. The pain goes from just impacting them to impacting the people that they care about the most. And up until this point in their lives, that pain that they've been feeling kind of, floating around the conscious mind, somewhat aware of it on their periphery. At that point, they might not have thought about how that impacts other people, but now, by asking these questions, we have heightened that pain massively because now they are aware of how that's impacting the people around them. Very, very powerful and very effective. The other direction that this works, though, is through desire. So once we've kind of gone through the knife twist formula, we've twisted the knife on the pain, we then later on in the conversation bridge it to hope and desire. So we want to shift them really from a vision of change, not just for themselves, but for the people that they love. Again, many people, and especially the people pleaser archetypes, care more about the impact, whether on a pain or desire level, for other people as opposed to themselves, especially the people that they care about the most, wife, kids, parents, etc. So here's the exact formula that you follow in your desired situation in that section of the discovery. So first off, you get a tangible goal, which has to be numbers based. So if it's like a make money type of offer, you know, the income that they want to get to, if it's a fitness type of offer, you know, how much weight they want to lose, you want to make sure it's tangible and numbers based. The reason why I go into in other videos. But once we've got the tangible goal, we're then going to go into their deeper why. I have quite a unique way in that I ask that question. A lot of closers just kind of give the classic, you know, what's your deeper motivation? And I mean, that's just not the most effective way to do it. Again, I don't want to get into it right now, but, you know, follow me, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Like, just, yeah, I go into that in a lot more detail. The way that I get the information for deeper why and motivation is very, very unique. So look out for that. Anyways, we've got the numbers-based goal. We get their deeper why. We then future pace them. And then we get the impact on close relationships. And then how would that feel? The personal feeling related to achieving the desire for the close people. So an example will be something like this. We've got all the information that we need. We've got the goal, the deeper why, the future pace. Then we're going to go into impact on close relationships. So let's say that you are at 20K a month. You've got that time freedom again. What kind of impact does that actually have at home? Now, a couple of things there, guys. You can see that I actually kind of do a little mini future pace there. Let's say you're at 20K a month. You have the time freedom. And then if you also notice, I kind of slow my words down. Like, this is a key concept in communication that, you know, you want to essentially break patterns. Like, if you speak at a certain speed throughout, people's subconscious minds will turn off. Our brain is always trying to seek patterns. And if a prospect's brain calculates the pattern that you speak, it has a tendency to switch off. So that's why when I get to the key part of the statement and question that I'm making, I will just slow down my communication. But anyways, that's a whole side tangent for another time. So I get the impact on the close relationship, and then I go into a how would that feel question. So prospect says, yeah, you know, it'd be amazing, like my kids, my wife, blah, 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 amazing. And how would that feel to, you know, come home to your kids, know that you've achieved X, Y, Z? I bet that would feel good, right? Yeah, it would, blah, 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 and so on. So now, guys, when we do it this way, so a lot of closers just get the numbers based, get the why, and that's it. Maybe they do a little future pace, but this is so powerful, guys. If you can also get them to verbally elicit what impact that has on the close people around them and how that would feel in relationship to achieving the outcome for those close people around them, extremely powerful, guys. Because now it's not just about the money, it's about who they become. It kind of becomes tied to their identity, how other people will see them. And the positive feelings that arise, you know, are not just tied to them anymore. They're tied to the people that they care and love the most. What does that do, guys? Think about that inspiration, desperation matrix. In pain, we nudge them along the matrix into a state of heightened pain. Doing it this way in desire, following this formula, will nudge them further along the matrix into a heightened state of desire. We're tying that desire not just for themselves, but for the people around them. Very powerful. That is elite level influence. Now, dark tactic number 3, boys, this is actually where it gets bad. I know that I've been saying that, but like I actually mean this. This is where it gets bad. Like, again, it's you'll see. So this one gets dark, boys. Now, any experienced salesperson, any experienced closer, you obviously know the importance of consequence questions. If you didn't know that and you're a beginner, well, now you do. Like, consequence is very important. But the reason why consequence is so important is because consequence is such a powerful motivator and driver of human behavior. And therefore, this is monumentally important in our sales success. So an example that I often give to the guys that I'm working with is that, by the way, anybody with like young kids in their house, maybe if you've got children or you've got young siblings, you will know exactly what I'm talking about as I go through this example. So let's say that you've got a goal to get the young child in your house to brush their teeth. So you say to them, hey, brush your teeth now because you've got smelly breath. That's a pain point, right? And what happens? They just ignore you, no response. Then you say to them, hey, brush your teeth and I'll give you XYZ reward. So I'll give you a toy, I'll give you a present, whatever, but still no response. But then, this is where it gets important, then you say, brush your teeth or XYZ consequence will happen. E.g., I'll take a toy away, you'll have to go to bed, and then boom, what happens? Immediate response. You watch them go running off to the bathroom to brush their teeth. So we couldn't get them to take action with a pain point. We couldn't get them to take action with a desire. But the second that we introduced a consequence, what happens? Boom. they are just sprinting off to the bathroom to do the action to brush their teeth. Very, very important. Consequence is a massive, powerful driver of human behavior and very, very important to our sales success. So, with this in mind, it's not enough sometimes for prospects and human beings in general to make a change just to get out of pain or just to reach their goal. Like the child example we've just been through, there often has to be a consequence to not changing for somebody to actually take action. So many closers, what they'll do is they'll ask basic consequence questions in their discovery, but with this dark sales tactic called the future shame formula, we're going to go a level deeper and a level darker, all right? So here's how it goes. Step number one, we're going to tee up the question. So this is how I ask it. Obviously, you can tailor this to kind of suit your own language and the way that you communicate. So, okay, Mr. Prospect, I do have another question for you. In all honesty, it's not a fun question, but somebody asked it to me a long time ago. I found it to be extremely useful. Do you mind if I ask? Prospect says yes. As a side note, again, a vibe and a tone of genuine care and curiosity, it helps here. Not crazy important, but it does definitely help. Now, once we've done that, we've teed up the question. Step number two, we are going to ask our pretty standard consequence question. This is something that pretty much all you guys as sales reps or closers will be doing already. You're going to say, okay, well, the question is, what does it look like if you do keep doing exactly what you're doing right now? Like, let's say that we get another 1-2 years down the road, things stay exactly the same as they are right now. You still have X pain. What does that actually look like moving forward for you? The prospect will answer and start, going over the consequence. Now, this is where a lot of sales reps and closers will stop, okay? But the thing is, we can go a level deeper and we can use some very powerful drivers of human psychology, specifically what's called loss aversion, status pain, and identity level discomfort, where what we're going to do is ask a question that further deepens the consequence by relating that consequence to not just themselves, but to the other close people around them and their status and their identity as a human being, all right? Very dark. Okay, so it goes something like this. You ask your basic consequence question, and then you'll say, okay, got it. And if that did happen, like 6 months pass, we're still in the same position, do you think your insert close relationship will look and perceive you in the same way? Like honestly? And then they'll open up. And another one that you can do is for, you can add this on or do like an and or, and I imagine that close relationship, they'll still be evolving, they'll still be growing, but if you remain stuck in current situation, do you actually feel like there comes a point where they will honestly look at you and perceive you in a different light? That's playing on status and identity. It's very, very powerful. Now guys, this is just some broad examples. Like you can take the macro concepts, right? Can you see how in these questions, really read them. If you want the document, if you're watching this on X, comment below. If you are on YouTube, the link's in the description. But yeah, ask me for the doc and I will get it to you. So read that question a couple of times. You'll see what it's doing. If you really kind of study these lines, you'll see what's happening. We are playing on their status and on their identity. And then you can kind of, come up with your own questions, make it suit around your particular, what you sell, the way that you communicate, etc. But ultimately, guys, what we are doing here in the future shame formula is we are tying consequence to the people close to them. Again, similar in the similar in the dark tactic number 2, that we are, most closers stay surface level and get the pain of how it relates to the prospect themselves, or the desire in the desired situation. The prospect, the closer kind of stops at when the prospect mentions how that desire would affect them. But if we can also tie that stuff, pain, desire, consequence, if we can tie that to the people around them and how it impacts them, your sales results will skyrocket, and that's a fact, okay? Because doing it this way, asking consequence this way, it presses insanely powerful psychological buttons. Again, specifically status loss, identity triggers, and loss aversion. Very, very effective and also very dark. So to the absolute psychos that watch this until the end, congratulations, you are a terrible person. Again, if you want this document for yourself to read through on your own time, if you're watching this on X, comment dark and I'll DM it to you. If you're watching this on YouTube, the link will be in the description. And for those of you guys that do want to work closer with me, really take your sales skill to an elite level, get placed into an elite level role, really take your income and life to entirely new heights, hit the link below, watch the video on the next page, and I will see you guys in the next video.